On the ropes against Isaac. Suddenly the sky behind them fractures, and Ichigo bursts forth from a Garganta, his blade aimed straight at Isaac's head. This moment depicted a major turning point in the fake Karakura Town arc. Like the surprise return of the Vizards before it, this moment marked a major milestone in the war. The Espada fights had ended in the Shinigani's complete and utter victory, and the first of Aizen's generals was down as well. Despite that, our heroes seem to be on the back foot more than ever before, and Ichigo's sudden appearance was meant to reignite the spark of hope that had dwindled. At last he had returned to Mundo, bringing with him whatever he had gained through his trials there. Ichigo's arrival set into motion the long gestating final stages of the entire Arrancar War, and it was a very exciting time in the story. It was hard to know exactly where Kubo was going to take the battle from here. I mean, sure, Ichigo was going to face Aizen in some capacity, but what form would that take? And how would Ichigo avoid seeing Aizen Shikai, supposedly the key to defeating the villain that made Ichigo special among the Gotei 13 forces? Well, the answer to both of those questions came at the same time. The entirety of the Gotei 13's remaining fighters, including the Vizards, appeared before Ichigo in a clash, an incredible eclectic lineup of powerful warriors ready to fight for him to keep him from seeing Aizen Shikai. Aizen had a brief, personal, intimate duel with Shinji prior to this, but this battle, I would say, really marks the villain's first true fight in the series. We saw a glimpse of his raw strength at the end of the Soul Society arc, but now that power of his gets reaffirmed once and for all in an actual showcase of his near unbelievable force. So, in our latest battle analysis, we're going to take a look at what is arguably Aizen's most iconic fight. Chock full of classic Aizen moments and the total spectacle for Bleach's most famous villain. Now, this fight represents both the very best and worst of the Arrancar arc in more ways than one. I love how personal this battle feels despite the large number of fighters involved. As Shinji himself says before the fight begins, they would never allow Ichigo to battle Aizen alone. After all, they all have a stake in it, and he's right. The Gotei 13 were betrayed by Aizen, who later waged war on them, and to the Vizards it's even more personal as Aizen ruined their lives 100 years ago. This is a crucial difference, I find, between Aizen and Yhwach. Despite Aizen's lofty ambitions for godhood, he remains very much a familiar villain. Meanwhile, Yhwach actually is the closest thing to a god really in the Thousand Year Blood War arc, and thus feels very remote and above it all, reflected in the fact that he never really comes up against any of the Gotei 13 himself. And so, in that way, this fight represents the depth of the Arrancar, a real personal battle with real personal stakes. Everyone is getting involved, not out of obligation to the story, because all legitimately want to part in bringing Aizen down. Yet, on the other hand, it also represents the very worst of this arc's biggest drawbacks and flaws, because this fight should never really have come to be. Not in this way, at least. It's absurd that almost every single fighter is still available to battle Aizen here, and then be swiftly defeated by him. Yes, Aizen is ridiculously strong, but more than anything it highlights the total ineffectiveness, the uselessness of the Espada as an organisation, and how ultimately completely pointless they actually were. This double-page spread of the Gotei 13 and Vizard titles is wonderful and also extremely telling. All of these characters represent Espada, and all of them, save for Toyfon, are practically uninjured. Komamura is badly hurt, but he wants to fight Espada. And then the fact that Aizen managed to defeat all of them in basically a single hit, one after the other, only serves to reinforce the idea that the Espada were essentially wrong. And sure, the series is self-aware about this to some degree. Aizen comments that he never expected the Espada to be so weak and so inferior to his own powers after taking out Annabelle, but it doesn't make it sting any less. And then there's the fight itself. Again, the spectacle on show here is some of the best of LxrdPrinceMe art, and like I said earlier, for Aizen himself, this is really show, both in terms of power and his character. But it also highlights another aspect of LxrdPrinceMe art that many find frustrating. Considering who they're up against, it really feels like many of these characters just aren't really trying hard enough. Sure, two of these players, Shinji and LxrdPrinceMe, have large tires that simply aren't suited to being used among allies, so that's fair enough. But it kind of feels like most of the other characters are battling on autopilot. It's honestly not surprising they go down so easily when fighters like Love are defeated in such an embarrassing manner and so quickly too. And so to follow on from that, honestly, this is one fight that I would love to have actually been a bit longer. I get that the point is to showcase just how unstoppable Aizen is, but considering the earlier emphasis on how everyone has a reason to be here and a stake in the battle, it's sad to see them be beaten so thoroughly and so fast. That being said, the fight isn't short per se. It runs unbroken, by the way, from chapter 388 to the very opening pages of chapter 393, which isn't bad at all, to be honest. But instead of half a volume, it would have been nice if Kubo was able to dedicate a full volume to it instead, as this is a momentous moment. Imagine if Captains and Vizards had multiple opportunities to strike at Aizen, combined with hours before finally thinking they'd won. That's not to say some characters wouldn't get taken out earlier than others. Aizen seems to have it in the order no matter what. But I feel like it might have been ultimately more satisfying that way. This is an interesting fight in that initially, the hype surrounding Aizen is exciting and undeniably cool to watch, but once the dust settles on a reread, I can't help but wish for a little more. I'm also not entirely sure what the game plan was here. Initially it seems like the captains are all fighting to keep Aizen busy enough and not use his Shikai so that Ichigo can land a fatal strike of some kind. Suifon herself even says as much to Ichigo. But then the captains just go and try and kill Aizen themselves anyway, and Ichigo just sits and watches on the sidelines, never moving an inch. Again, I can't help but think it would have been better if there was some kind of concrete plan in place. If Ichigo had joined in during the fight and tried to hit Aizen every now and then, while Aizen conversely was trying to activate his Shikai, only for the captains to prevent him from doing so. That would have given the captains a material impact on the outcome of the battle and given Ichigo special thanks to. Instead, they all line up to get defeated, and Ichigo doesn't even move from the spot. So this is a flawed battle for sure. I love the idea, but I'm not convinced by the execution completely. But that being said, the fight is still a joy to read, and the final twist is absolutely amazing. I once called it So with all that said and done, what's actually involved in this multi-man melee? Well, for everyone, Ichigo is being defended by a bumper bonanza of Gotei 13 warriors, both past and present. Kyoraku, Toshiro, Kamamura, Suifon, Shinji, Rose, Love, Lisa, and Omaida? Technically, those mysteriously vanish with the moment the fight begins. The vice captains don't get involved. It's a bit of a shame, as I'd have loved to have seen someone like Isami attempting to attack Aizen alongside Komamura, especially after what just happened to Tosin, but I think believe most of them are either too injured or sufficiently weak to make Aizen no difference. But again, maybe it would have been cool to have them fighting on the sidelines. Maybe Izuru is trying to heal the captains, maybe they come down to him every now and then to get some healing, or returning to fill the slots of other captains who now need healing. I don't know, multiple layers like that could have worked really well. And it would have given Aizen an excuse outside of just being cruel to go and take out Izuru and Iba later on. Really, the only warriors of note that don't get involved are some of the other older captains. Ukitake, who is lying dying on the floor, Unohana, who has arrived to treat the wounded, and Yamamoto, who is merely watching for now. In terms of the Vizards, Achi is busy trying to stabilize the bifurcated Shiori, while Tensei is battling Wonder Wife off-screen, a fight that will remain off-screen too. Maybe Tensei is already down at this point alongside Mashiro, we don't know. Either way, most fighters involved in the fake Karakura Town battle are gathered here in some way or another, the fight that they hope will finally end it all. But how did we get to this point? First, some pre-fight context to help set up Aizen's epic takedown of the Gotei 13 and the Vizards. With Ichigo racing to fake Karakura Town, Unohana informed him that he is the only fighter currently not under the influence of Aizen's all-controlling zone plateau, Gyoku Shigeki, meaning Ichigo is the only person who can see things for how they really are. And this is important too for trying to decipher the truth behind the fight's final twist. Ichigo provides us with a lens through which we can view the fight as it is actually played out. Arriving on scene, Ichigo smashes through the sky, appearing right behind Aizen. It's a really epic moment. I remember absolutely loving the cliffhanger of chapter 387, thinking it was so exciting and that it marked a huge moment in the story. Ichigo and Aizen finally face to face once again for the first time since the end of the Soul Society arc. As Shinji and Komamura look on in shock, Ichigo tries to end the fight in a single stroke. A massive torrent of black energy comes screaming out of his weapon, and he slams Zangetsu into Aizen, an explosion of power barreling across the sky. However, Ichigo is still reeling from the ramifications of his battle with Lord Kiora, and out of fear of not being able to control it, Ichigo does follow. As a result, when the smoke and energy dissipate, Aizen is revealed to be completely unharmed, having blocked the attack effortlessly using a small lime green Kido shield produced by the back of his neck. I love their meeting. It's incredibly cinematic and truly a showcase of what Kubo does best. Dynamic, beautiful art. I love that as Aizen's eye appears through the cascading darkness towards Ichigo Ryoka Boy, an obvious callback to the Soul Society arc like I said the last time they met. Ichigo continues to helplessly try and swipe at the villain, but Aizen successfully taunts him, goading him to activate his hollow bar. And as Ichigo flings another Getsuga at Aizen, he grows more and more desperate, attempting to put distance between himself and his enemy at every turn. I think Kubo does a great job of showing how Ichigo feels a desperate need to see him, to see Aizen, but there is that innate nervousness about finally coming face to face with a big boss. Really effective. Aizen takes the chance to prove to Ichigo that his efforts are in vain, appearing directly in front of him and even placing his fingers on Ichigo's chest. While Aizen continues to show just how in control of the situation he really is, this sequence really reinforces that Ichigo has no plan at all outside of just swinging his sword and punching face. Aizen then attempts to talk Ichigo down, asking how he could possibly hate him as none of his friends are dead, and that with no hate towards Ichigo can never defeat him. It's a nice speech. I like Aizen flipping the usual mantra of the heroes on its head, as he tells Ichigo that merely swinging his sword with a sense of beauty isn't enough to get the job done. In one of Aizen's coldest lines, he tells Ichigo that his powerless friends will just be dead weight, implying they're all holding Ichigo back simply by being alive. Had they been killed, the unshackling of his rage would have allowed him to win. Everything that follows regarding Ichigo throughout the rest of the arc is designed to show him rising above that, above what Aizen is. That being said, I always found this a little hard to believe as well. Aizen asks Ichigo to hate him and what he's fighting for, but it's pretty obvious to me to protect Karakura, which is about to be destroyed by this man. Ichigo's family and human friends are all in danger of death, and that seems like a perfectly good answer to both of Aizen's questions. As Ichigo's resolve begins to waver, however, Komamura suddenly steps in, having Ichigo's arms steadily inflamed. This is another nice moment, though I'm surprised the captain only watched and waited for as long as they did. This is also Komamura's first interaction with Ichigo himself, but Komamura warns Ichigo that Guile and Quartz are Aizen's weapons. If he allows Aizen into his head, he's already lost. Other Shinigami begin to appear rapidly around them, their silhouettes rush on gusts of wind, and as Komamura tells Ichigo that he knows why he's come, he promises not to let him see Aizen's Shinigami. At that moment, the fighters are all revealed in an amazing spread, their weapons raised, ready. Komamura declares they were all fighting to protect Ichigo, and they stare down Aizen himself as the confrontation begins. It's undeniably awesome to see everyone gather together like this. When the Vinegard arrived, initially there was some trepidation about everyone going together to but now those conditions are unequal and pushed further aside. So I have to admit, as much as I like Rose, him facing and not as cool as it is. Normally the whole anime pose fine, but here everyone is facing a particular enemy, so for Rose to be the odd one out is just fine, especially at the start of the next chapter. You can see it almost looks like he's walking backwards on the sea. But with everyone now present and accounted for, the fight itself begins. Ichigo can't believe that they're all here to fight for him. After all, they're all heavily injured themselves. But Shinji reminds him that a lot of people here would appreciate Ichigo taking on Aizen all by himself. After all, as I said, they all have a stake in the battle. It's interesting to think as well that this time Ichigo doesn't know the Aizen's history. It's possible he is already assumed by this point that they were former Gosei 13 officers. He doesn't know the extent which Aizen is responsible for. It is weird that Oneida is so heavily featured during this sequence above any other one. Totally vanishes in a minute, never to return until the fight is seemingly over. I love using detail these title pages, however, which breaks up the actor's face, mirrors the direction and pose they're in on the big group image at the start of the chapter. That's really cool. It was that kind of touch that really sets me those arms apart. I like the chapter too, the first half anyway, Winged Eagle. Earlier I and without any hesitation, basically the attack is one alien eagle without wings. However, Kubo explains the word way. There are two potential angles in which to interpret these chapter titles. Either he's defiant in saying Aizen is wrong, and the captains are winged eagles regardless, or full option in my opinion. He's acknowledging that every captain here is fighting Aizen with a touch of hatred in their blade, even if they're trying to suppress it. Speaking of which, Hitsugaya is the first into the fray, whooping towards Aizen and locking blades. Aizen is quick to lambast Hitsugaya, being reckless for flying towards him like that without a second thought. Hitsugaya counters by saying somebody needs to make the first move, and missing an opportunity to attack, plays right into an attack. Hitsugaya then mockingly commends Aizen for not immediately using Kyokusuigetsu the moment the battle began. Of course, we know the truth. Aizen is already using Kyokusuigetsu and the captains are under his spell. But thanks to Ichigo, we know that nothing has changed yet. Clearly the captains are currently doing battle with Aizen himself, just as it appears to us. Aizen returns the favour, commending Hitsugaya for being smart enough to not attack by himself, as something swings into view behind the villain. Aizen quickly lifts his free arm, conjuring another Kido shield, which is successfully blocked and brought up into the fire. Captain Kyokotsu connects with the shield with a crash, illuminating that blast. Kyoraku wonders if Aizen is calling them cowards, is striking his teeth. The rules of engagement in Bleach are often those of action duels, strictly 1v1 unless explicitly stated otherwise, so it's possible Aizen is calling them cowardly, though I doubt it, and almost certainly expected them to strike like this regardless of the they would have done well to attack Aizen as a group a little more ruthlessly throughout. But with Hitsugaya and Kyoraku having made the first move, Ichigo continues to watch from the rear. Beside him, Komamura speaks up again, thanking the boy for arriving on the battlefield when he did. Komamura laments that had Ichigo not struck Aizen when he did, the captain would likely lost himself to his anger and been killed. It's interesting reading this moment in the context of what happens to Komamura later in the Thousand Year Blood War. Here, Komamura acknowledges that if he decides to get revenge on Aizen in the moment for what happened to Toaster, he will end very badly. Yet later the captain finds himself spiraling uncontrollably down that dark path in a much quicker and more permanent way. But it's also kind of funny to me that Komamura has this revelation and then gets obliterated in a moment anyway. Next up, Shinji starts speaking with Ichigo too, grumbling that he should have brought Orihime back with him so she could have healed them all up immediately, allowing them to fight Aizen at full strength. But he relents, deciding that Unohana was probably the better choice anyway, as we see the captain of the 4th Division making her way to Hiyori and Hachi. Honestly, I'm a little surprised she doesn't go and visit Ukitake first, considering he's actually her comrade, her colleague at the moment, and it doesn't seem like anyone is healing him or keeping him stable. At least Hiyori has Hachi, but I do also get it, she is quite literally in half. Unohana is definitely a weird wild card in this scenario. It's odd to me that she totally vanishes after this and doesn't make the slightest attempt to try and stop Aizen once he's defeated Yamamoto. Knowing what we do about Unohana, about her past and her relationship with Yamamoto, it's very odd to me that his defeat doesn't stir anything in her. Had Kubo planned for her to be the original Kenpachi at this point, I think Yamamoto falling in battle before her eyes would have made an interesting reason to drop her facade. Either way, Shinji commands the other Vizards, Lisa, Rose and Love, to head into battle with him. Finally, Soifon approaches Ichigo, and I believe this is their first ever encounter as well, I'm not entirely sure, telling him to get in the zone as he'll squander his one chance to attack Aizen if he's not fully prepared. So, right here, it definitely seems like the plan is to allow Ichigo an opening to strike at Aizen once again, but it never materializes, as Ichigo just doesn't do anything in this fight at all. But Soifon tells Ichigo that just because they're fighting this battle, it doesn't mean they are resigned to death. Instead, they're actually fighting to live, and to save everyone from Aizen himself. As Soifon leaves, Omaida scrabbling to follow in haste before disappearing, this feels particularly bleak in retrospect, knowing Yamamoto has a plan to basically sacrifice them all using Enetsu Jigoku should it come down to it. But thinking back to what Byakuya told him in Wako Mundo, Ichigo's resolve hardens. Of course, there's nothing to worry about, even though he's just experienced some of Aizen's strength first, and these are the captains of the Gotei 13 and the Vizards. He can entrust them to the task, and all he has to do is watch the flow of the fight. Aizen is immensely powerful, but seeing those fighters flying away from Ichigo, though we don't see the extent of what the Q does best, perfectly about Unohana, about her past and her relationship with Yamamoto. Yet later the captain finds himself spiraling uncontrollably down a dark path in a much different... Either way, Shinji commands the other Vizards scenario. It's odd to me for strength. But he relents, deciding that Unohana was probably the better choice anyway, leading the captain of the 4th Division making her way to Hiyori-Apache. Honestly, I'm a little surprised she doesn't go and visit Okitake first, considering he's actually her comrade, her colleague at the moment, and it doesn't seem like anyone is healing him or keeping him stable. At least he already has Apache, but I do also get it, she is quite literally smart. Unohana is definitely a weird wild card in this scenario. It's odd to me that she totally vanishes after and doesn't make the slightest attempt to try and stop Aizen once he's defeated Yamamoto. Knowing what we do about Unohana, about her past and her relationship with Yamamoto, it's very odd to me that his defeat doesn't stir anything in her. As Kubo planned for her to be the original Kenpachi at this point, I think Yamamoto falling in battle before her eyes would have made some interesting reason to drop her facade. Either way, Shinji commands the other Vizards, Lisa, Rose and Love, to head into battle with him. Finally, Soifon approaches Ichigo. I believe this is their first ever encounter as well, I'm not entirely sure, telling him to get in the zone as he'll squander his one chance to attack Aizen if he's not fully prepared. So, right here, it definitely seems like the plan is to allow Ichigo an opening to strike at Aizen once again, but it never materializes, as Ichigo just doesn't do anything in this fight at all. But Soifon tells Ichigo that just because they're fighting this battle, it doesn't mean they are resigned to death. Instead, they're actually fighting to live and to save everyone from Aizen himself. As Soifon leaves, Omaida scrabbling to follow in haste before disappearing, this feels particularly bleak in retrospect, knowing Yamamoto has a plan to basically sacrifice them all using Enetsu Jigoku should it come down to it. But thinking back to what Byakuya told him in Wako Mundo, Ichigo's resolve hardens. Of course, there's nothing to worry about, even though he's just experienced some of Aizen's strength first, and these are the captains of the Gotei 13 and the Vizards. He can entrust them to the task, and all he has to do is watch the flow of the fight. Aizen is immensely powerful, but seeing those fighters flying away from Ichigo makes me wonder how well he would have done if they had all of the exact same time. But returning to the action itself, Hitsugaya then breaks away from Aizen, putting some distance between them. Hitsugaya then finds himself Aizen, telling him to swing the sword out of duty alone is what a captain does. It's what makes a captain fit to hold that very position of responsibility. To swing a sword out of hatred is nothing but violence. Hitsugaya coldly remarks that there's no the idea of using violence in that way, Aizen isn't captain material at all. But of course the great irony here, as Aizen himself will essentially point out in a moment, is that of all of them, Aizen is the only one here that is really holding anything in his heart or his blade. You can tell as well, I think, that Kubo adored writing Aizen. It makes sense. This character is perfect for expertly chipping away at his other characters, capable of bringing even the noblest of them down. Aizen knew that Hitsugaya is the assassin who hates him the most of all. Before wondering, though, if that hatred disappeared the moment he the battlefield all healed up. Recognizing that Aizen's words were starting to get to Hitsugaya, Kyoraku suddenly intervenes again, attempting to clean Aizen in two from behind. As always, I love Kyoraku's claims for the honor of fighting. Every fight he's making is an attempt to finish the battle in one go. And this is a great example of why it would have been cool for this fight to have been a little bit longer. A sword is only swung 3 times in this entire chapter. However, Aizen merely appears behind Kyoraku, saying he was in the middle of a conversation. It's something of an echo of the moment Kyoraku tried to start out of the blue while he was putting Lilith. Here, though, Kyoraku is a listener when men are talking, finds him bored and I think behind. Unfortunately, though, it is too late. Hitsugaya is consumed by his rage, by the immense amount of hatred he feels towards Aizen for what he's done to Inamori. Yes, unlike everyone else, Hitsugaya's anger is even more personal and it is totally warranted. Inamori is his childhood friend, and she joins the Gotei 13 to be with Aizen, yet he used her, manipulated her, and then tried to kill her when he was finished. It can be easy, I think, to get a little frustrated with Hitsugaya and how childish and hypocritical he can come across in this fight, but this is meant to be one big lesson for him. More than anything, this battle catalogues Hitsugaya's fall from grace. Yes, Aizen is fighting everyone, but he has a more laser-focused goal in mind than that. He wants to break Hitsugaya apart and cause him to give in to his darker side. The old saying goes that you're only as strong as your weakest link, and that's exactly what Aizen is trying to exploit here.
No. I need to just chill. Can I please just do that? No.
Antara has spent a long time building Hitsugaya up, but this is the moment that all falls down for the character. Hitsugaya activates Bankai in a stream of ice and there is hatred in his sword. Hitsugaya then, enraged, says he didn't come to fight at all, he's here to brutally kill Aizen with violence. As Aizen looks on, Kyoraku grows concerned, warning Hitsugaya to stay focused. A lovely bit of foreshadowing, and the next expert way to demonstrate the difference in experience and maturity between the two captains. That being said, it's not like Jordan doesn't let himself get caught off guard when things get personal either, as we see both with Take and later Yamamoto. But as the next chapter begins and Hitsugaya emerges from the ice cloud, the angry bark that Aizen most likely wants to say that if Hitsugaya has taken his sword, then he isn't captain material either. And to that, he'd be correct. Hitsugaya declares that still Aizen would happily give up his captaincy. On the one hand, this shows just how much Hinamori means to the young captain. On the other, I wish Hitsugaya had suffered some consequences of this fight. Of course, he pays the price in a big way for losing control of the battle, but ultimately, nothing really comes of it in the end. Imagine if Hitsugaya had actually been demoted as a result of him basically costing everyone the fight. This would be a really interesting scenario. But Hitsugaya, now in Marseille, flies towards Aizen, roaring to show him no mercy and give him no chance to use Goto Suigetsu. But as the battle continues, Gin watches from the background, amusing himself with the captain's attempt. Hearing Hitsugaya say he'll give Aizen no chance to fight back, reinforces to Gin that they really have no idea what they're up against. Again, this is interesting to me. He mentions later that it was fun watching the captains try their best to hunt Aizen down, but surely in the interest of trying to actually kill Aizen, he would have been better off working with them and telling them what he knew. It seems to me that working with Team Player just isn't how Gin does things, and he's no hero either. He got a genuine pleasure from watching them fail repeatedly. In this sense, while Gin has to begin to keep quiet, it seems like that works against him to me, but I think he was supremely confident that he knew how to kill Aizen, so he was just kind of having fun, watching everyone else try and fail in the meantime. We also see Ichigo once again, letting us know that this is still Aizen in play, and the fight is still proceeding exactly how we see. Hitsugaya swings his ice blade at Aizen, activating Kyoryu's sentence and armor Aizen's opponent. Aizen really is over impact and soaring into the sky above. As Aizen ascends, Hitsugaya diverts his upwards to the swipe of his sword, but Aizen prepares to strike back when suddenly a dark shadow falls over him. Out of nowhere, Aizen finds himself trapped between a colossal blade and a huge spiked truncheon. Komamura's Kenken and Lug's Tengumaru, the two captains rushing inwards attempting to smash Aizen to pieces between their mighty weapons. I love the shot of Aizen between the two gun plateaus, all respect with great sense of scale. Even if Tengumaru does suddenly seem to be colossal for some reason, regardless, it's really cool. Exactly the kind of impromptu teamwork I want to see more from this fight. The two weapons collide in an earth-shattering crash, seemingly destroying Aizen. From above, Komamura steps up, telling Hitsugaya that he's joining as well, asking for forgiveness. I like this little detail. Komamura was clearly moved by Hitsugaya's rage and his speech, and probably feels bad about getting involved further, but also he has no choice. Plus, as mentioned extensively already, Hitsugaya isn't the only one who wants to bring Aizen down. He feels like they have a role to play. Why shouldn't Komamura join him? So, by the way, it's quite a rare instance of Komamura actually using his shield type. Unfortunately though, Tenken is suddenly destroyed, a violent burst of power reducing the giant blade to shards. From within a cyclone of dust, Aizen emerges as one of my favourite Aizen moments ever. He asks Komamura if he thought to overpower him before simply smirking, calling the captain forward. However, he quickly takes it back, merely saying that their understandings of power are fundamentally different. Another classic Aizen quote, before promising to show Komamura what real power is. Aizen appears above the captain's blade lifted in the air. Instantly activating Barnside is one of, if not the smallest Barnside activation panels ever. Komamura calls upon Kokujo Tengen Myor, only for Aizen to carve the giant warrior in two with a single slash. A waterfall of blood sprays from the soldier and from Komamura, both of them losing an arm to strike. Again, Kubo's artwork is so incredibly on point here. The angle of the giant arm falling from below is so great. But Komamura isn't about to be beaten in a single hit, and hourly animalistically he attempts to strike Aizen again with his shattered blade, but Aizen lightly blocks it, swatting it away before slicing Komamura across the torso, defeating the captain. As blood gushes from Komamura's mouth, he is the first captain to fall, and why am I not surprised? Aizen seems to respect a lot of the captains, but for some reason, I don't think he's a shred of respect the Komamora or his Zugaya, a lot of them, and actively enjoys dunking off both. As a fan of both Aizen and Komamora, this thing does tear me up. Aizen being able to one-shot a Bankai like that is pretty crazy, using the bare minimum of effort as well. But of course it's not the first time he's done it either. Don't forget that Aizen does the same exact thing to Zugaya, both in the Soul Society arc and then again here in this battle later on. The fact he blocks Komamora's weapon with so little trouble feels a little insulting to the character who simply can't catch a break. But alas, this is Aizen we're talking about. Maybe we should focus on being impressed by the fact that Komamora is the only fighter here in this entire battle to take more than one hit from Aizen before going down. As soon as Komamora collapses, however, both Love and Rose leap into action in a very cool panel. Rose flings Kinshara at Aizen, but Aizen simply catches the golden whip, rendering Rose's Shikai immediately useless. So I wonder why Rose didn't just instantly activate a Sonata and attempt to blast Aizen. I think the implication here is that everything is happening unbelievably fast, and Rose finds himself being pulled towards Aizen in an instant before being slashed and defeated, following suit after Komamora. Even so though, Aizen must be moving so unbelievably quick that captain level fighters not be able to react at all. Meanwhile, Gin continues to narrate that yes, Kyoto's Suigetsu is monstrous, but that isn't what makes Aizen terrifying. What makes Aizen scary is his raw innate power. He really is just that strong, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. This is a slightly odd moment that really only exists to hype Aizen up as being completely unbeatable, and it does kind of work. Gin seems to have a twisted admiration for Aizen that doesn't really float with how he feels about him in reality. Plus, I'd argue that without Kyoto's Suigetsu at all, Aizen definitely does become less scary. Anyway, as we enter the next chapter, Ichigo watches in disbelief as Komamora and Rose fall, before Aizen somehow manages to wrap Love up in Kinshara, cutting him down as well. Honestly, Love might be the most embarrassing of the bunch. How does that even happen? Presumably, Rose has let go of his uncut toes, maybe she's done that before getting cut. But I'm still not sure how Aizen would manage this, or more specifically, how Love would let this happen. But Love is cut down as well, and Ichigo looks on in horror as all three fall before Komamora has even hit the ground. A cool display of how quickly everything is moving. Also, the fight is still playing out as we see Ichigo hasn't noticed anything untoward yet. Suddenly, a massive tear comes zooming past Aizen's head. Its Agaro combo leads to Shikai is instantly sliced in two. Interestingly, Lisa makes a smart decision to attack Aizen while followed by, but regardless, he takes her down in a single hit as well, blood spraying from her back as Aizen callously reminds her of the fate of Iran. And as such, it's impossible for her to challenge he who leads the Iran themselves. It's odd that Aizen still falls from failures, but in many ways the horrification is effective, thanks to his game, but the Vizards have all fallen now, save for Shinji, the first of many embarrassments they'll face from here on out. And it could be that Aizen is persisting in calling them Mokaranka, Maildaranka, simply as an attempt to insult them. Up next is Soifon, who appears immediately before Aizen, and is given an unusual amount of prominence, I'd say, considering she doesn't really have any relationship with Aizen at all on a personal level. But the two of them have a nice conversation nonetheless. Aizen can't believe she's right there in front of him, wondering if she's lost her mind. After all, the secret police are never so brazen in their approach. Aizen then recites to her the credo of the Gotei 13 itself, which by the way is very interesting. The final line is, if you really want to protect something, attack the enemy from behind. And Aizen knows this is clearly the mantra of the Omnix Kido specifically, but it really seems to have been taken to heart by Kyoraku, and so maybe he is the one fighting the most like a Gotei 13 officer supposed to. Speaking of which, where is everyone else right now? Why did no one step in when the Vizard were also jumping to attack Aizen? Why did Lisa attack Aizen completely on her own? That does seem like insanity to me. I assume the remaining captains have all coordinated their upcoming plan while the Vizards were being cut down. Maybe that's all they're good for. Anyway, Soifon scoffs at the idea of Aizen reciting Gotei dogma to her, at which Aizen reminds her that he was a teacher once. Soifon's lines here are a little weird, I think. She insults the Central 46, saying they were insane to let Aizen teach, and it's no wonder they were deceived by him. But Aizen rightly notes that she too was deceived, to which Soifon is seemingly adamant that she wasn't, but We know she was, so I'm not too sure what the point of this is. Anyway, Soifon leaps into action, flitting about in front of Aizen and conjuring a wall of clones to distract him. It's a cool piece of imagery and actually quite impressive, though we don't see the extent of what the clones can do. At the very least, they all copy Soifon until he rushes forward with his back extended, ready to kill Aizen. As Aizen prepares to meet her, lifting his blade, his arm is suddenly frozen in place by a surprise attack from Hitsugaya, shocking him. Now, this is where things get weird, and we have to ask ourselves, is this still Aizen? Personally, I assume it is, though things must be being set into motion at this point, but Ichigo still hasn't said a thing. With Aizen's attention turned to his frozen arm momentarily, Soifon appears in front of him, stabbing him in the chest with her Shikai. Pulling her arm back, she activates Nigeki Kesatsu and deals the finishing blow, stabbing him again in the same spot, presumably instantly killing him. Except, of course, she doesn't. Looming over her with a shadow on his face, Aizen grabs her hand, musing that she has an interesting technique, however, it'll never work. As Soifon looks on in horror, Aizen reveals he's simply quashing her technique with his staggering Reiatsu, blotting it out completely and rendering her power totally ineffective. Before he can attack her, however, a blade bursts forth from his chest. Aizen is casting a shadow on the ice, and from the darkness behind him, Kyoraku rises up, looking very badass by the way.
Team deathmatch. All operatives, you're clear to engage.
Got one side moving.
Taking the lead. Friendly UAV online. Friendly remote turret deployed. Hostile UAV in the area.
Mara.
Friendly UAV on station. UAV active.
Watch your fire. Check your
Mission time is half over. Hostile Mosquito is online.
enemy down.
Hostiles deployed a Mosquito. UAV standing by. The mission's complete. Good work.
Really fuck you with everywhere. 4-6 in your high court. That's about all the fucking thing.
Well, you see, I